Welcome to the Personal Transformation Experience podcast. This week, we're going to talk about how we see our reality. And this is going to go back to a conversation that I had with somebody a few weeks ago. And we were debating Buddhist philosophy.
Yeah.
And this person's take on Buddhist philosophy is that life sucks. And if we are aware that life sucks, then it's easier to deal with it. At least that's what I heard, because I can't speak for what the other person meant, but I can share what I heard. And I debated that notion because the way I see it is Buddhist philosophy teaches you to change the way you look at your reality. Mm-hmm. If you choose to see your reality as life sucks and I've got to figure out how to deal with that versus life sucks if I choose to look at that way, which it may seem subtle, but I think it's not.
No, it's not subtle at all. I mean, it's subtle in the way that it's something that I think people think about here and there, but it's kind of they just move on with their lives is sort of in an unconscious way. But it's powerful in that if you stop and really think about it, that mild shift in perspective can change everything.
Absolutely. It's a shift from life sucks to life is what it is, how I see it.
Right.
Shapes my life.
Exactly. I mean, You sit there like life sucks. Well, guess what? Life's going to suck. I mean, if that's what you feel like, if you constantly think life sucks, then you're going to have sucky experiences, I think. Or you're going to invite those more into your life, or you're going to see everything from that life sucks perspective.
The thing I like about that Buddhist perspective from a philosophical standpoint, it teaches you to just see something for what it is. It's just accepting things as they are, right, and not trying to create a narrative about it, right? Because there's a lot of things that we can create narratives around, like I'm sick. I'm sick of being sick. How many times have I said that in my life, right? Versus my body is experiencing a virus. It'll probably be gone in a couple of days. This too shall pass, which is a great expression for a lot of things.
Yeah.
Same thing, depression, right? It's a real thing. I've endured it. I've had parents that battled depression. So, you can say I'm experiencing sadness, or you can say I am depressed, right? And then now identify with something. So I think all this comes to bear that it's a choice of how do we see the experience? What lens are we looking at?
Exactly.
The
what
experience
lens
through?
And that's what really matters. That's the crux of it. I think at the end of the day, the real core of the issue is perspective. Mm-hmm. It's all about perspective and how we see the world around us. Because if you see it it depends on your perspective.
Right.
Right. So if you see the world from a negative, or I can't judge, but if it's from a perspective of life sucks or I am sick all the time, then life is going to suck and you're going to feel like you're sick all the time. So I think I remember years and years ago when, you're presented with really challenging situations, challenging people, and never it's important to never say, don't use words like never and always. And because those are just what are they called? They're like, you can't, they're exhaustive, right? There's no wiggle room. I never do this. Well, that's not true.
Right. You always do
Nobody
this.
ever does
this, right?
one thing, right? So never and always and those kinds of words you want to, and should and shouldn't, keep out of your vocabulary as much as possible, because they're judging words and they don't leave you with any place else to go. There's no way to redeem the situation or your behavior or anything. So I remember years and years ago when I was in a challenging situation with us. My daughter was an infant, and I was living in a marriage that wasn't working, and I was seeking a different perspective. And I just kept saying, if I could just look at this from a different perspective, it would change everything. And because I was thinking on those terms, when you're ready, the teacher shows up, right? Mm-hmm. So all of a sudden, I was looking at Wayne Dyer and A Course in Miracles, Marianne Williamson. This was 20 years ago.
Right.
And I remember reading A Course in Miracles. Like, you read one passage every day and you kind of like think about it and reflect on it. And one of the most powerful passages I ever read said something to the effect of, when you shift your perspective ever so slightly, that is the miracle. So you could be looking at something in one way for so long, and then you just shift your perspective a little bit, and it opens up a whole world of change and difference. And you're like, oh my gosh. So that isn't the only way to look at something. There are other doorways, and all these other avenues open up for you to think about and go down, and you can see a way forward. And so I read that, and that was really powerful. And then soon after that, I read something from Wayne Dyer, one of his many books that I read, that said, when you change the way you look at things, the things that you look at will change.
That's right.
And I was like, holy crap. So all these messages were sort of coming together, basically saying the same thing to me. And I'm like, this is it. This is what I need to do. This is my perspective. I need to shift my perspective. And so for me, journaling was a very powerful thing. So if it's inside my head, I can't really gain perspective because it's like just there. Once I put it out on paper, now I can look at it. Right there, I have perspective. As soon as you get something out of your head and put it outside your head on paper, or even like if you voice it into a voiceover where you can go into text, that changes everything, because now you do have perspective. Immediately you have perspective because it's no longer in your head.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right.
And you could look at it from and I feel like, we're inside this bubble, and we just keep trying to push back at that bubble, and it's like boing, 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 until somehow that bubble gets penetrated. We squeeze through, we pop out, and oh my gosh, we could see the whole sphere, right? So then you're able to see that different perspective. So I think that's kind of the real core of change, and changing the way you feel about yourself and changing the way you look at things in your life. And when you think, when you put anything in front after I am, it's very powerful as well. So when you say things like, I am sick, I am stupid, I am not able to do this, then the universe
I'm not good at this.
I'm not good at this.
Right.
Then the universe is going to give you exactly what you want.
Right.
Exactly what you're asking for, what you're thinking. When you say, I am brilliant, I am an excellent communicator, I am healthy, I am in excellent health, I am whatever it is you want to be. It's like when you exercise and nourish your body, you don't eat the amount of proteins that you want, that your current weight is. If you want to lose 10, 15, 20 pounds, whatever it is, you eat those macros according to where you want to be. So for anybody who's into fitness, you eat according to like the weight you want to be, your target weight. So if I wanted to be 130 pounds, I would eat 130 grams of protein a day. That would be my target. Not whatever my weight is now in protein, in grams. So I don't know if that's a good analogy, if everybody can connect with that, but maybe you have a better one. But that's immediately what I thought of, because if you think of targets, you want to think of what you want. And even if it doesn't exist, you can still say, I am, whatever it is you choose to think of yourself in a positive light, however, whatever you want to be.
Yeah.
Or, or I am grateful for something you don't have yet. If your brain doesn't know that it doesn't actually exist yet. Right? In reality, you could be like, I'm grateful for, my master's or my PhD in psychology. You don't have it yet, but now everything in your body is going to go towards that goal.
As you were speaking, I reflected on a couple of things. One is that when you reflected on your prior marriage, you didn't say I was in a bad marriage. You said I was in a marriage that wasn't working. You might have also said I was in a marriage that wasn't healthy. Right. So I think that's a great shift in perspective, because how many times, maybe 10, 15 years ago, would you have said I was in a bad marriage? Right. So saying things are bad or good,
or I made a bad decision,
right or wrong, right? That's a quantification. That's a label. That's a judgment, right? Too.
Right.
That
I would self-blame.
Clouds that perspective.
Yeah.
When you try and see things, well, this is bad and this is good. You're right. I'm wrong. Right. Those are things that are polarizing, and also, kind of take away from really having the right understanding of the situation, that it was a marriage. We tried, we gave it our best effort. we weren't compatible, and it didn't work out, and we moved on. The other thing that I wanted to unpack is you talked about the perspective and being against that bubble, and I was reminded of a movie that I don't know how many people watching even know what I'm talking about right now. It's about 50 years old, called Logan's Run, and it was set in the future.
Yeah.
And these people lived in literally a bubble, these domes. It was a dome city, and they literally believed that when they turned 30, they renewed and started over again. So they were basically vaporized, for lack of a better term, at the age of 30, thinking that they were going to reincarnate as a baby. And then people got outside the bubble and realized, oh my gosh, there's this entire world. There are people that live outside this bubble. There are people that are old, right? So sometimes we think, whether it's a situation we're in, we're having financial difficulty, we're having difficulties at work, the perspective and getting outside that bubble can be helpful. Like I shared with you this course that I'm taking, and I'm in a course with 65 other people.
Yeah.
And I see the stories from people that they're posting in the reflections that we have to post each week. And they are all sharing stories similar to things I'm dealing with at work. So it was so eye-opening for me to realize I'm not a target. They're not doing this to get me personally. This is the way these things go, right? So that is the experience of working. Maybe some people don't have that experience, and that's great, and everybody's experience is different. But by and large, people are competitive in work environments. People will disparage other people and their decisions. People will play Monday morning quarterback and all kinds of things, right?
Yes.
So these are things that you realize it's the experience. It doesn't mean it's about me, because that's a perspective you can have. Well, they're doing this to get me, right? That's a perspective. But if you shed that lens and said, this is just it is, and it doesn't mean I roll over and let people treat me badly. That's not what we're saying.
No.
But when you first acknowledge that, okay, instead of saying, oh, I wish my coworkers were like this, or I love this coworker, I wish all my coworkers were like that. That's the kind of thing that will create suffering.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, I mean, life is like that, right? Life is, there's going to be ups and downs, and you're going to suffer, but it's usually transient. Nobody suffers every single day of every single minute of it's a choice, right? And I know that there are some really challenging situations for people, and it's very hard to think that, that's not taking away from somebody who's in really, really bad, dire straits all over the world. There's some really rough things happening. But for those who are can choose to think about things in a different way and have those capabilities, you don't have to suffer every minute of every day. I mean, if you think about, what is it I'm grateful for, right? I mean, there are things that you can find gratitude with. And I know that's earthy crunchy, and everybody's like, oh my God, the gratitude speech, but it's not really. It's just, it actually does help when you stop and you think about all that you have and what you can be grateful for. You can't be grateful and feel angry at the same time. Once you shift, then usually you're like, okay, I do have some things that are going really well.
Yeah, this goes back to sitting down and saying, why is this happening to me? Why did this happen to me? Why did this person do this to me? Right? Those sentiments are going to leave you in a stuck place, right? Right.
And if you want to move forward, the questions aren't about why. It's about, okay, what can I do to change?
Right. Here is where we are.
Right. How do I move forward?
And where do I go from here?
Where do I go from here? I mean, meet yourself where your feet are, and, absolutely validate, your emotions are real, and, you have a right to be frustrated if you're frustrated about something, but know that it's not going to last forever. You can...
Impermanence.
It's impermanent. Everything's impermanent. Everything is impermanent. Nothing's permanent.
Yeah, no matter what we like to think.
Super important to think about. Yeah, especially when you're going down that, emotional rabbit hole of I'm awful, I can't do anything right, and life sucks. And yeah, no, it's not permanent. It will change.
If you followed along, of course, I'm a movie buff and I love quotes from movies. And as we were having this discussion, I was reminded of a quote from the Matrix Resurrections movies, the most recent fourth installment, where the architect of the Matrix in that movie made a comment about the human condition that I think is so appropriate to this discussion, basically saying you humans quietly yearn for what you don't have while dreading losing what you do. And for most of your race, that's the definition of reality, desire and fear, right? So it's this whole idea, I maybe want something I don't have, and I'm afraid of losing what I already have. And when you really think about it, that's a tough spot to be in.
Yeah.
Right? Because sometimes you really truly don't have control, right? You don't have control what other people do. Tragic things happen to people. Tragic things have happened to us. Tragic things happen to other people. They lose family members, they lose limbs and things like that.
Yeah.
And that everybody responds differently. And it is the response, right, that's tied up with this perspective and your response, right? They're intertwined. Right, because you can see something as being your life is over. I mean, we've plenty of inspiring stories out there. People that have lost body parts, right, and are now engaging speakers and inspiring others. The surfer who I think it was a young girl lost an arm to a shark, right, and continued to surf, and that became a story. So there are stories of people moving past things, but again, and it goes back to how do they see. Do they accept where the present reality? Do they see things for what they are? And then are they able to move forward because they're choosing the response to that experience? Yeah.
I mean, knowing that you're in a situation that is challenging, something that, you would like to change because this is not what you desire at this time.
Yeah.
Then know that, okay, this is where I am. What's my next step? What do I do to get to get a vision of what you want, and then take that first step. Right? You don't have to see the whole staircase.
Well, that's Martin Luther King, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Take that first step in faith.
Absolutely.
And that I remember reading also many, many years ago when I was doing the Course in Miracles. It just things when you're really challenged by things. I think you need to really kind of go inward and work on yourself.
Well, it is an inside job.
It's an inside job, right? To try to...
It's not out here. Right. It's in here.
To try to change your life, looking at what's around you and change what's outside of yourself never actually works.
Yeah. Well, that was in our original logo for this, right? That we change the world outside of us by changing the world inside of us. It does start there.
Yeah. And I remember always saying, that's kind of always been, whenever I come into a really challenging situation, I go inwards because there's no place out there safe for me. I remember feeling it's not safe out there. I'm going to go inside myself and work from there, because going outside, I just feel like I don't have any control out there. Yeah. But here I have control.
No,
so
it doesn't. I'm not sitting here disavowing a belief or a relationship with a higher power, and that's helpful for so many.
Oh my gosh! So pray.
And has been helpful in my life as well. But are we asking for someone to make something happen for us, or are we asking for the strength to move through something?
Right. That's what
right?
you, and and so I remember always, asking, begging, please, I need this, I need that, whatever.
Right.
When I was in my 20s and, things were super, and then I changed it to being grateful for that which I want, as if I already have it. And that was a game changer. Because the moment you become grateful for the strength, for the education, for the good health, for whatever it is you desire, and just be grateful for having it already, it changes everything. There's your shift in perspective. Right. There's your miracle.
Yeah.
Right? There is the shift. It's a subtle but powerful shift. Right? It's just a very slight couple ekes to the right or whatever I'm saying, just a very minor shift in perspective, but it's powerful and it can change everything for you. And it did for me. I can't really speak for anybody else, but all these, the books that I was reading, and from the people that, wrote them, like Wayne Dyer and A Course in Miracles, was these doctors wrote it from Columbia, a bunch of them together. That's the history of the Course in Miracles. A group of doctors, PhD, all these people in Columbia University created the Course in Miracles that Marianne Williamson was talking about at the time. But it's a belief in God, a belief in a higher power, and looking for that higher power to help you find the strength. But faith is very powerful, and it will, prayer and faith collectively as an energy is a very powerful thing. So absolutely pray, meditate, however you do it. I mean, that's if it works. I mean, but always know that you have to, it's on the inside. And when you could make that shift from the inside.
Yeah. And that's important that you also spoke about meditation as well, because meditation, taking this time to be mindful, right? And I would say we should be mindful all aspects of our lives, not just the time when you're meditating. But the idea behind meditation, if you can sit for 20 minutes or 30 minutes, it's not to clear your thoughts. It's to allow your thoughts to come and go without going with them. Powerful distinction. But the idea is if you can calm the mind and be more the observer of your thoughts than jumping in. Like, imagine standing at the side of a river and your thoughts are floating down the river. You are standing on the riverbank and you are watching your thoughts float by. You don't jump in the water and go chasing after them. And that's the whole idea of meditation, because when you're so wrapped up in your thoughts, then you can't be present and you cannot have the right perspective or the right view of your current situation, because you're too wrapped up in your thinking about it. You have to move from the thinker to the observer of those thoughts. And otherwise you are your thoughts, and then you will go wherever your thoughts go. Right. You have to be the observer and create that awareness.
Well, yeah, if you ever want to really see what's going on in your own mind, because you can't, you're like, I feel like my brain is scrambled. I don't know what's going on in there. It's a scary place. Stop, meditate. Right. You will see what's going on in your mind, because you just pay attention. Just look at just say, okay, I'm just going to look at my thoughts. I'm just going to observe my thoughts right now. Yeah. I'm not going to judge them. I'm just going to observe them. You don't go running after them. You don't jump in the water after them, right? You don't. You just watch them. You're like, oh my gosh, that's a crazy thought. Moving on.
Another good book that we've not talked about on here that I think everyone, it's a really hard read because it's very scientific, but I think it really talks about this shift. Very technical, though, is Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself by Dr. Joe Dispenza.
It is, yes.
Because this is the human condition, right? The habit of being ourself is to not be mindful, to not have the right perspective about things, to cling to things, to want things we don't have, to try and push things away that we don't like. And all this suffering, right, is wrapped up in this habitual state that most people find themselves in. So the difficult thing is breaking the habit of being ourselves, and the personal transformation and making the shift, seeing things differently than we are today. And I think the right title for this podcast is You Have the Power to Choose Your Perspective.
That's right. And I want to circle back to something you said as you were talking about the right perspective. So we're not talking about right versus wrong.
Correct.
Or someone's idea of right compared to someone's idea of wrong. That's not it. Right perspective only means a different perspective. Having like the flexibility in your thinking and the agility in your emotions to look at something from a different perspective without judgment, just curiosity.
Right.
Comes down to curiosity. Really, it does. So so there's no right or wrong. It's being curious about seeing something from a different lens, and then actually going to that lens, looking through it, and being in awe about it. Like science, like, oh, wow. Like the first time you saw, like, the Milky Way from, a big telescope, right? Or something. You're in awe from a different perspective. And that's what I felt when I was able to finally shift my perspective and be like, oh my gosh, look at all these other paths.
A great movie, The Shift.
The Shift, that's a good movie.
Yeah, 25 years ago.
Yeah, really interesting. Because it does do a great job of showing a shift in people and how they start out and then how they ended up. and what caused
It's a
the
great
shift.
movie. Yeah, it shows people arguing and stressed out, and that seems to be the state. And then people come to bear and bring those things to work, into meetings, into relationships, and then what
As a
happens?
parent.
And if we react to those people and those experiences in a similar fashion, we're just going to escalate the situation. And so what we're talking about is moving from a reactive state to a responsive state
Right.
by allowing a gap, right? And that's the great thing about mindfulness, is slow your mental reactions down, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you're not, and we talked about this months ago, we're not ready, aim, fire to everything that happens around us, right?
Right. And I think something that, we talked about a few podcasts ago, it absolutely warrants repeating. Esther Perel said something during a podcast, or I think she was doing a talk, and she said, if you want to change the way someone responds to you, you have to change the way you respond to them first.
Mm-hmm.
And that will change the way they respond to you. 100%. If you keep responding to someone the same way and don't understand why they keep giving you the same thing back, that's why you're in like this vicious cycle. Change the way you respond to them, or your reaction to them, or whatever it is, and then they will change the way they respond to you. And I was like, during the Diary of a CEO interview, it was really good.
Now, there's probably people listening that would say that doesn't guarantee that other people will change the way they respond to you.
Doesn't guarantee it, but you have control over how you respond to somebody else.
Right. Because that's really the only thing within our control.
No, right, exactly.
our
Our own
response.
behavior, right.
Right. Our own responses.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah,
we can set the tone for things, right? It's
can.
not always, because a lot of times I hear that, well, it's how we respond. That implies everybody can just trash us and it's all about how we respond. But you have the right to set boundaries and stand up for yourself.
Absolutely.
Right. And say,
Yeah.
I'm not doing that. Or I don't allow people to speak to me that way.
100%.
Right?
Yeah.
So you can be
That's-
firm.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
that's a
Setting
response.
boundaries. Yeah.
That's a response. It doesn't mean I'm just going to sit there quietly take someone berating me either.
No, absolutely not. Right. Changing the way you respond to them could be setting boundaries.
Right. And they may not do that behavior again because you're
set the
not allowing
boundary.
them to get away with it.
Right. You don't allow it. Right. You have to set a boundary. Absolutely. When it comes to somebody.
Or if you've said, I don't allow people to talk to me, and they continue, and you walk out of the room,
Right,
then they no longer have that power over you if you've walked away.
Right.
So that's a small example of changing your perspective, though,
Yes.
about something.
Yeah. Well, again, you change the way you respond to them. And should they not change the way they're responding to you, you have that's creating that boundary and walking away is your change in response.
That's right.
That's part of the response change.
Same thing with our children, too.
Yeah.
When I think back to how I parented 7 years ago, so I had a child that had depression. It was fairly severe, and I didn't realize it. And when they didn't do their homework and they lied to me, I shut the power off to their room. But instead, and that's a response that I chose. I was like, how dare they lie to me? I was indignant. But instead, and I've had this repair discussion with this child recently, I said, knowing what I know today, I would have sat with you and said, tell me
what's going on.
What is it like to be you at this point, right? What does it feel like to be you at this point? And they said, I don't know that I could have said that. And then I said, well, then I would have just sat with you in your pain. I would have just sat with you, right, and been there next to you, right, instead of punishing you, right, because I didn't understand. So a lot of times we react, we punish other people, we punish spouses. I mean, I know the model I had when I was younger is my mother would stop talking to people when she was angry with them. So that was passive aggressive behavior. But so I developed that in relationships, that I would stop talking to people if I didn't feel we were connecting, or I didn't like what they were doing, I would ignore them. I did that to people at work, and they thought I was psycho, obviously. But so those are different responses that we can take, but they don't help, right? And ultimately, we're not helping ourselves have good relationships.
No, right.
To me, everything is about having a healthy relationship with other people, with food, substance. I mean, it's healthy relationships, right?
Yeah, it's all about the healthy relationship and what feels right. If you feel like you need space and time because you're upset and you need to think about what's going on, then you need to communicate that.
Sometimes a healthy relationship means walking away.
Yeah.
Right. That's why some people.
But again, that communication is important, right?
Yeah.
don't just walk away and leave that person sitting there like, what the heck's going on?
Yeah.
You say to them, you know, for me, a healthy relationship is for me to walk away right now because this is not working for me. And it's difficult to say, and that it's going to be painful, but if it's what works for you and you need to do that, then that's all you can do. And you're not responsible for their feelings, right? So sometimes what you're going to say is not going to feel good to somebody else. That's okay.
My whole life was a struggle.
Okay.
We've talked about it before. I wrote a book called The Everything Kid, Letting Go of the Desire for Approval and Finding the Courage to Live for Me. But the whole premise of that book was I was trying to manage to other people's emotions and feelings. I was afraid of hurting people.
Yeah.
I was afraid of people thinking less of me if I didn't do something for them or talk to them. And that kind of emanated from my childhood and carried on to my relationships well into my 40s. So sometimes it takes a long time to figure that out. And we hope this podcast is helpful to people, that you don't have to spend 40 years figuring out and kind of talk. You listen to us, and we're giving you advice about authors and different people to read and, you know, dig into that stuff. And
well, yeah, I mean, the reason why we started this was because we wish that, you know, we could have
had this resource for ourselves.
20 years ago.
20 years ago, because we had disparate pieces, right? We had the Wayne Dyer, and you had The Secret, and
and
know,
The Power of Now, and all the things. I mean, and I did learn and read, you know, but it's still, I put it all together, and it took a while.
You got to connect all the dots and put everything together,
culminate.
And it's hard to do. So I'm glad we live in an age where people can share information, share experiences, what they've gone through. We can connect with others that way. But
and find what resonates with us.
Yeah. Any other messages you want to share today?
No, I think that for today we're good. I think it's a wrap.
I think it's a wrap. Again, the final comment is you have the power to choose your perspective. Don't forget that. We appreciate you watching. If you got something out of this podcast, please hit the like button and subscribe. Visit our Instagram page at Personal Transformation EXP, or email us at changingtheworldwithinus@gmail.com. I'm David Brand.
I'm Maureen Brand.
And we will see you next time. Thank you for watching.